Hello, welcome to the introduction of this graphic design series. I am Great Pomo. I'm a designer, consultant, and an entrepreneur. The reason I'm starting these classes, is to actually help someone out there who would want to improve with digital tools. So the class for this session is actually graphic design, and I'm just going to be explaining a lot. So this video is unedited, but I'm just here sharing my knowledge to ensure that someone out there is able to improve themselves. So for the beginning of this design class, I would want to explain something, which is the best software. In today's digital world, everyone is used to Canva. If you are just a beginner, probably you've heard of Canva. But Canva, it's not the only design tool. We have Canva, we have Adobe Illustrator, we have Photoshop, and we have Figma. These four design tools are the most common design tools. So if you have ever come across any design tool, I'm certain you could have either heard of Canva, Illustrator, Photoshop, or Figma. But I want to explain something here so that when you are getting started with your design journey, you start on the right note. So first of all, before you start this design thing, whether as a career or you want to improve yourself, you have to decide which path you are going through. Are you one who just want to do it for just to be able to come up with design, or are you one who not just want to be able to come up with design, but you want to actually become kind of an expert in the design field? So that will actually determine the tool you would use. And if you want to become an expert, it is still further broken down to what kind of tool to use. So first of all, if I'm going to explain these tools, I'll start with Canva. Canva as a tool, it's more like an automatic vehicle. That's what it is. If you've learned how to drive before, you know that the best way to drive is manual. After manual, it's easy for you to work your way around automatic. But if you start with automatic, it's very, very difficult for you to get your way around with manual. That's how it is. So Canva is like an automatic vehicle, and you have manual vehicles like Illustrator, Photoshop, and Figma. Though Figma is a mix of both kind of automatic and kind of manual. But if you just want to get the easy way to start, Canva. But if you want to go through a bit difficult process, Illustrator or Photoshop or Figma, what that will actually do for you, it helps you to be actually more proficient using a simple tool like Canva. Don't get me wrong, you can be proficient with Canva, but when you are used to Canva, by the time you move down to Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop or Figma, it becomes a bit more difficult. Not as Figma though, but something like Photoshop or Illustrator, it becomes a bit difficult because it's more sophisticated. They are more sophisticated, including Figma. They are more sophisticated, and so you would somehow be overwhelmed, or because you are used to simplicity of Canva, you would want to just fall back to Canva. But there is a disclaimer you should understand in Canva. If you want to be a professional designer, then you have to move above Canva. I use Canva, in fact, more often these days than Illustrator, Photoshop, or Figma. And it actually helps me, it saves me time. But I've also realized that there are lots of tricks I do in Canva that if I do not have the deep experience using either of Illustrator, Photoshop, or Figma, I would not be able to do some certain things in Canva. Not because it's limited to what I want to do, but there are some things I want to do. Yes, I know Canva has limitations, but aside the limitations, there is something you call creativity. And if you are used to using tools like Illustrator, Photoshop, Figma, your creativity space is more. So even when you come to Canva, you are even able to maneuver around Canva to come up with designs that almost seem like it was built on Illustrator, Photoshop, or Figma. So my advice for anyone is, okay, if you just want to get started and see how you can start making money with design, then you can actually start with Canva. Get started with Canva. Or you just want to get started designing immediately, not for money, but you have a need for design, just to make good designs immediately as much as you can, then you can actually start with Canva. You understand? But if you're on the path of you want to do this thing long term, you want to be an expert on this, then you have to go to either Illustrator, Photoshop, or Figma. So here's my advice. If you have the time to actually want to become an expert, you are not in a hurry, then you should start with either of Illustrator, Photoshop, or Figma. I would explain these tools later on. You can either start with either of them. But if you feel that, well, I want to get started, then when I'm starting out, I'm able to create beautiful designs, then I can then move over to Illustrator or Photoshop. Then you can start with Canva. But take note, when you do that, there will be a liability that you would just want to rest back on Canva because Illustrator, Photoshop may seem a bit more difficult, or Figma. But if you are willing to maneuver that fear, to overcome that fear, and you know you would want to also go deep, then you can start with Canva, get something doing, then you move ahead to either of these tools. But if you are just one for hobby or just to have an intermediate experience, then Canva is perfect for you. You can do a lot of things with Canva. But if you want to become an expert, then you have to move above Canva. It's just how it works. So I'm going to do a part 2 of this video to explain a little bit more about Illustrator, Photoshop, and Figma. So just watch through the next video.